Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I think this would be probably both to Ms. Lohman and Mr. Grader. There's a provision in the bill that says fisheries data, and perhaps the gentleman just spoke, addressed this in a different way, but from being used in coastal and marine spatial planning, meaning this data could not be used when we're having discussions of, in particular right now, wind farms off Oregon and elsewhere. And I have had my fishermen express tremendous concern about their lack of meaningful input dealing with the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management as relates to this. And it seems to me that this is an unnecessary prohibition, particularly if we want to try and put these things in places that aren't prime fishing grounds. I mean, it's not secret where people fish anymore. People, you know, I mean, everybody knows where you fish, and it's not like the old days where you had your place to go and you went over the horizon and no one knew you were there. Could anybody address that?
Thank you, Representative DeFazio. I think I sort of mentioned it in my last one. Information is power. And you know, we get fishermen coming to the council pleading for us to engage more and to be able to share that kind of information that we have collected on across fisheries in different places and have access to. So I think it's important to be able to use that information in those discussions with other users of the ocean.
Ms. Grader?
Yes, I think it's also important to have that information. In fact, when we were developing California's network of protected areas, the process was problematic, but I think one of the better aspects of it was the fact that we did try and get good economic data from the fleet, so we knew just what type of impact those protected areas would have, and try to avoid those as much as possible, and that is where there'd be serious economic displacement.
Great. Ms. Lohman, on a point you raised, and this, I want, you know, I've been focused a lot more on transportation over the last few years, so I took over ranking, and one thing we've done in California is something called SEPA, and we've given them actually authority under federal law for highway projects, strangely not for transit projects, for highway projects, to use SEPA and not have to do SEPA and NEPA, because it's generally regarded that SEPA is probably even more rigorous than NEPA. You're raising the issue of, you know, MSA pretty much satisfying NEPA, but we really haven't aligned them yet. Do you think there's a way we could basically develop something that most people would agree is sufficient to meet NEPA requirements as some kind of, you know, a little bit different approach to the MSA work by the council, so we could have one process, but we're accomplishing both goals at the same time?
That is really what we're looking for. We're not trying to get out of it, but I think that we would need to bring some things in to MSA to be sure that we did have that robust environmental analysis of a full range of reasonable alternatives. But that's the kind of the goal. Get it under the same timeline. Get it, you know.
Okay, well, I'd welcome any suggestions you have on that. Do you have a suggestion on that, sir? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Representative. The issue for us is that the council system is connected to the development and achievement of optimum yield in fisheries. It is primarily focused on economic development, which it should be. NEPA serves a much broader set of national interests in the ocean zone. And the federal agency's unique and non-delegated role under NEPA is to make sure that the fishery-driven decision-making that's happening through the Magnuson Act is understood in a broader context of environmental impacts. And so while we agree with the 2006 amendments where there are a lot of ways that these roles could be integrated better, and the agency hasn't really moved that 2006 push from Congress to do so, and we would hope that they will in the future, we would keep the functions of those two statutes separate.
Well, again, I'm saying, you know, in the case, we've already have an example where we've delegated because we felt the state laws, you know, exceeded, and it's been very successful, no complaints. And I'm just thinking there's some way we could meet both goals at once without parallel processes with different timelines, because as I understand it, sometimes the council's done with its decision-making and you're still in the NEPA process, which is supposed to inform the decision-making. So NEPA is supposed to inform decision makers. It's not just supposed to be a process. So anyway, I'm open to any ideas anybody has about how we can meet this goal, but thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just wanted to, if I could, just follow up on what Mr. DeFazio said. I think from our standpoint, from representing commercial fishermen, we are very wary of any attempt to try and change the NEPA process. It's been very important to us for the reasons that Mr. Shelley said, as well as to ensure that we have very thorough analysis and have a good range of options presented. The other thing I should say is the ESA provisions in the draft are problematic to us. We've probably had the most experience of any fishing group in the nation dealing with the ESA, and it works when there's funding for it and support for it. But I don't think that the councils really are set up, nor do they have the staff to be able to handle ESA issues. And I think for that reason, ESA issues need to be kept where they are.
Time of the gentleman has expired. We have, the votes have been called now, but Mr. Lowenthal, I know you were here earlier. Do you have a burning question? All right, good. Thank you very much. I want to thank